Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Road Less Taken. This is the weekly web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversation with people who've made these unconventional career choices and excelled at them. My name is Venki Srinivasan, your host, and today I'm going to be in conversation with an IT pro who finally found his calling. After a self-confessed set of boring jobs, he took the plunge and became a comedian and a writer. He's an incredibly successful stand-up comic. He's got his own book out called Ranga Half Pants. And last year, he co-wrote the screenplay for the very, very successful show on Amazon Prime called Family Man, which I'm sure many of you would have seen. In today's episode of TRLT, please welcome the man behind Family Man, Suman Kumar. Hi, Suman, and welcome to this episode of The Road Less Taken.
Hey, Venki. Thank you for having me on your show. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How is lockdown treating you? How are you doing?
Well, I think the writers are the only people who will be busy right now because, I'm used to this life in the sense that, I've been holed up. I've written back-to-back 2 seasons of Family Man. So
Wow.
I'm used to sitting holed up in a room with a dirty desk and just, type away. So
Getting coffee and typing away and with ideas.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Coffee, tea and other beverages sometimes.
And other beverages sometimes. Yeah. So, I'm going to kind of dial you back a little bit and ask you about the days of you growing up. I know you were born in Madras and then you grew up largely in Chittor, was it?
Oh, yeah, most certainly. Like every middle class family, South Indian family, my parents also wanted me to become an engineer.
Right.
Not even a doctor. They were very clear.
Okay. They were very clear. No doctor or engineer, only engineer.
And I was. My dad used to work in Chittor, and we lived. I was born in Chennai, like you said, and I like the way you call it Madras. Yeah, I was born in Madras, and I did my schooling, my education in Chittor. So, but around around 8th standard, I realized that I had this thing of this passion for telling a story.
Nice.
And I also I was a voracious reader. I don't read that much anymore because not as much as I used to. I mean,
right.
So that helps. You are you as a writer, you are what you read essentially. Or at the very least, you learn how not to write when you read bad books. So, my mom made. We are 3 siblings. My elder brother studied Hindi. I studied Telugu, and my younger brother studied Tamil. So I could read both Tamil and Telugu. Telugu was the language that. So I was reading Rajesh Kumar, Rajendra Kumar Subba in Tamil, and also later on I graduated to Kalki Balakumaran. Rajan DK was my schoolmate in Chittor.
Okay.
That's the connection. So and he introduced me to the world of Sidney Sheldon and
of course.
And so at that time, so I think around 8th, 9th standard is when both DK and I we started writing stories. So we used to fill up this 192 pages unrolled notebook. You write it landscape because you get more time to write versus portrait.
Yeah.
And nobody took it seriously in the sense that.
Did you write for someone, for a school magazine or something, or just like that?
No, I studied in a government school. The fact that we had a functioning toilet itself was a big deal.
Wow.
Forget book clubs and whatnot. So I wrote it, and my dad thought it was cute, and he'll show off to his friends and to our own family members, saying, "Someone wrote this. Can you believe it? He wrote the entire story in one book."
Nice.
So usually I'll write. I mean, 9th standard. What do you expect? I used to write stories like "kill or die," which means. And people used to joke about it, saying, if you read this book, either you'll kill someone or you die yourself. And slowly, so that was the foundation stone. But I really didn't know that, it never occurred to me that it could be my career. But I was very interested in studying arts, which is I want to study literature and go down that route. But my dad was adamant that I become an engineer. But unfortunately, when I was old enough, I said I'm not interested. And though I studied maths, physics, chemistry in 11th and 12th, but my academic scores were performance was really abysmal, to put it generously. because all my cousins and everybody is scoring like 100 out of 100 centum, as they call it, out in
Centum,
maths
yeah.
at least. But I scored 18 out of 150 marks in my first PU. My dad is like, that's 18 more than what I expected. So I tried to show my a rebellion or fight by performing poorly. So they tried, and then my dad said, okay, uh, I will buy you an auto. You can become an auto driver also. I'm like, so what's wrong with auto drivers? Like, why do you look down upon auto drivers? And he's like, just shut up, don't talk to me, do whatever you want. I ended up doing, BCom. So
Okay.
and but my education has nothing to do with what I am now. And then this writing dream kind of went on the back burner because of many factors, like I was nursing a heartbreak after college, and I moved to Chennai around when I was 22, where my mom will be like, I think you should get a job. I think, 22 vaisachi.
It's high
And
time.
like, it's weird, like, they'll compare it to Sachin Tendulkar, and that man is, they'll compare me with DK. DK is a state ranker, and I mean, whatnot. He was a phenomenal in academics.
Okay.
So my mom used to say, "Yaru patta pulliyo punya manna vairu." Yeah. And then I became a salesman unwittingly. I used to sell advertising space for Yellow Pages.
Oh, okay.
Tata Yellow Pages, and that's it's not an easy job.
Yeah.
And I excelled at it because that's storytelling, nothing else. Like how to connect with this character. Like I realized that when you walk into say a posh office and you want to meet the boss, you wait in the reception area and figure out what that girl's name is the front of, usually there, and then you walk up to her and say, hey Usha, and she'll be like, hey, how do you know my
Oh, you
name?
know my name. Yeah. Okay.
No, I heard people talk to you, that's how I know. And then already the ice is broken.
Right.
And like, can you please, like, so I used to be that salesman, the
Very
nice,
interesting.
not the aggressive, like, oh, ABC, always be closing, not that, but I used, if you want people to help you, they should be invested in you emotionally. So that, and but I kind of got disillusioned with the whole sales game, right? You're only as good as your last month's performance, all that bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I quit and I went into copywriting, thinking it's like, it's a creative job. And then I realized, you know what, copywriting is also a sales job.
Yeah.
So I got really disillusioned with that. And then one of the clients gave me an opportunity and went into IT, became a technical writer. And then finally I became a user experience usability consultant because I found that interesting, the human factors. Finally I ended up after a string of software jobs. I ended up in ESPN as a user experience. I used to work for Cricinfo and sports media, exciting. But by this time, by this time, I was really jaded in the sense that in 2002 I started writing blogs, and I continued writing my Chittoor stories, all these stories on my blog to get practice. But then I realized that you have a book in you, but you're not doing anything about it, and so all the pent up frustration, all that kind of it manifested itself in ESPN. And around that time we had a baby. My wife was like really looking, saying, "You, this job is killing you." I said, "No, this job is not killing me. It's me killing me, because I'm not a fit here. I mean, I'll be happier in other places. I don't know what." And she is a doctor, Chitra, and Chitra was like, by the time she was already an MD, MBBS MD, and she wanted to do super specialize, and she gets this DM endocrinology birth in Calcutta, and she said, "I will not go to Calcutta without you guys." And then I said, I can't quit my job and come. And she said, "You know what? Quit your job and write that book that you claim." And hot potato, I dropped my corporate job and kissed goodbye to my, Amex card, expense credit card, all that. And I finished off all. I wanted to be zero debt. I cleared off all my loans, whatever loans I had, and that really shrunk my savings. And then whatever was the remainder of my savings, I took it to Calcutta, and we struggled there for 3 years. Because we knew that once Chitra comes and starts a practice in Bangalore, we really don't have to worry about who's going to pay the rent and who's going. And so, for a long time, she said, "You have paid rent all these years. Now it's my turn. You just go fail, no problem."
Fantastic.
And so the license to fail is important. And I realized that the paycheck is the worst addiction in the world, and it took me a long time to get over it. So I started talking to DK, who by that time, along with Raj, had done a few movies like Shore in the City, Go Go Gone, and and DK really likes my my blog stories. Stories on my. He's like, how much detail do you put in there?
But let me stop you there. At that time, had you already been published anywhere beyond your blog?
No, I have one short story here, one short story there. I mean, nothing to get on the balcony and like bang the talis about. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't, and so I had started the conversation with the DK then, and in Calcutta I started writing Ranga Half Pants, my first and only book as of date. And so by the time I moved to Bangalore, I got the deal from JCO to, they said, okay, we'll publish a book, really interesting. And around the same time, I started working with DK. And so around 2015, end of 2015, 2016, somewhere, the idea of Family Man, which had been there with Rajan DK for a while, the premise, when Amazon came along and we pitched Family Man, and then that's how I.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Ranga Half Pants, the book came about. Is it partially or largely autobiographical in some sense? Is it just from memories collected in childhood that have translated into the written word?
The story is fiction, but there are certain elements to it, like how, Ranga's pain when his special friend breaks his heart. He's in 9th standard. That is, of course, it comes from experience, right? And I mean, I would be lying if I told you I did not take anything from my life and put it in Ranga Half Pants. But the story and the characters, maybe they are inspired by a few people I know, who I'm friends with, but there is a mix of it. But by and large, it's fiction.
Right. So tell us about Family Man. You said the idea had been with Rajan DK for a while, and you guys pitched it to Amazon like in 2016, 17, and so it took like what, 2.5 years for the project to come to screen?
We spent more than a year developing it. Once we had the go ahead from Amazon.
So take us through this process. When you say developing it, what happens? I mean,
in the series world, there is something called as one is the story, which is a synopsis, which gives you a hint of what you can expect from this world that you plan to create. And then you get a go ahead saying, okay, go ahead and develop the script now, develop the story now. So then what happens is you develop something called as a Bible. Because usually what happens in TV, it's a TV thing. What happens is and it goes on for seasons after seasons, and it is impossible for one writer to sit and do it season after season, right? So what happens is the Bible it is called a Bible because that's what any new writer will refer to if he or she is interested with writing a particular season or a particular episode. So first you develop that Bible, which is basically treatment. Like it's like no dialogues, but it pretty much sticks to the structure that we have in mind. How like what happens first, and what's the middle, and how it's going to end, all that. And that for the season and also for each episode. Like there are certain things like you always end the episode in an interesting way so that it makes the audience to go click the next episodes. So you engineer it in such a way that there is always an interesting ending. It's a hook, it's a cliffhanger, so to speak. In the binge watch world, there is no option. You have to be interesting. But, irrespective of the genre, it could be a drama, it could be comedy, it could be a spy thriller. So which is why ours is it's basically, if you see, it's spy thriller meets soap.
Right.
Not a soap, because there's
Not
a
a
lot of
soap, but
family.
an everyday person and
Yeah.
his travails
Yeah.
meets a spy thriller. Right.
Yeah.
As the writers, do you think of, I want this character to be brought to life by this actor, that type of thing?
Yeah, it's all part of the game. Like, for example, when you're writing, when you're in the Bible itself, when you're developing a certain character, for example, for season 2, when I was writing the Bible, I kind of knew who I wanted for certain roles.
Okay.
So certain characters. So because you see them, right, and you have seen that actors work, and then that will be a good fit. And I was 90% of the time, I was right.
Okay.
And also, I don't take the call on casting. It's ultimately the director's call. So, but as a writer, I make these suggestions. And Rajan Dick are cool that way, because they believe in taking feedback, ideas, and making the product better.
I can understand the narrative and the way it progresses in a certain direction and so on, but do you have like an end for the entire series already written out, or is that something that might evolve depending on whether the OTT kind of wants to renew it further and so on?
It purely depends on the success of it. So, like for example, if season 2 does well, there will be a season 3. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is always like success begets success and all that. But what happens is, even from Bible to screenplay, the story will change, because what happens in the screenplay is you're actually staging the scene.
Right.
So when you get into that level of detailing, what happens is sometimes you get an idea saying, hey, why can't we do this instead of that? And so you kind of stray away from the Bible. But by and large, the overall, the overreaching, goal of the season will remain the same.
Will stay the same. Yeah.
It will be as same as the Bible 99% of the time.
Right.
Screenwriting is unique in the sense that, for me, it took me a while to get used to it, because in a book, you are the director, writer.
Yeah.
So it's all you. It is what it is. In the literary world, usually editors, elevate what you've already done,
embellish what you've written. Yeah.
But here, what happens is, it's like, a writer. As writers, we write something, and the other artists come and perform, like actors, composers, for the background score, costume stylists, and the production designers, and you have editors, all of them, and the VFX guys, and so on and so forth. Everybody included, all the departments, so to speak. They come and perform. It's like an invitation for other artists to perform. That's what a screenplay is.
Fantastic.
So that's the fundamental difference between, say, being an author versus a screenwriter.
The screenplay.
Yeah, because you cannot. What this means is, you cannot step on the other artist. Like, you don't. There was a look of mild consternation on his face, is a book line. Okay, what do you mean by that? So what you do is, you never say, and you say Srikanth is angry. Srikanth is visibly angry. Now, it is when Srikanth's character is in the hands of a great actor like Manoj Bajpayee. He understands the point, and he's a legend. So but usually actors know. And what they do is, and that's the magic of cinema, is that that's what the actor suddenly will take. And it's not just one editor elevating it. It's the actor. Primarily, it's it's the actor, because the audience is invested in the character's journey. So the first amping up will happen with and good actors know where to take an idea and really make it better.
Take it to the What's the most interesting or funniest feedback you've received for Family Man?
One guy gave me the unmentionables while paying he gave galis about my grandma, mom, everybody, while paying a glowing tribute to what a great story Family Man is. So I was like, I didn't know how to react. I just let it go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But in
yeah,
general, do you like how do you react to the avalanche of feedback that comes your way, especially in this OTT world, social media, everything instantaneous, people tweeting out?
well, it's now it is as someone who's on the inside and who's watched it, develop and
Mm,
finally come to a
mm,
shape,
mm,
and then usually you'll get two kinds of feedback from the
mm,
audiences. It's the I mean, I worry about audiences because they are forgiving in the sense that if you make them feel good, if you made them emotionally connect
mm.
with the character, that's it. And they're forgiving even if there are some minor mistakes here and there. They are
Sure.
forgiving, but usually from the audience, either they will pan you saying, hey, boring man, or they
Mm.
will say great, or they will say, you know what, I liked, like, until the fifth episode it went well, and after that, this is the kind of feedback you get.
Right,
Very,
right.
it's either a compliment, it's a brick or a
Mm,
bouquet.
mm,
But the other kind of feedback is what critics write,
mm.
which I like. They try to read into, oh, this is what.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, that's the funniest thing because they when they go into the meta,
Mm, mm.
the
What
what
they
is.
think you were trying to say or you should have said
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things
And
like
like,
that.
oh,
Yeah.
the juxtaposition of the Srikanth struggle and Suchitra's struggle at a meta. அவ்வளவுலாம் இல்லையாப்பா அதுல. It's you're basically the thing is you take an what is a story? A story is nothing but you take an ordinary character and
Mm.
put them in an extraordinary situation. When I say
Right.
ordinary, I mean it's relative.
Yeah,
Like
sure, sure. Yeah.
for example, you have a fear of heights, and
Mm.
now for you to be alive, you have to go up the Mount Everest. I'm just
Right.
exaggerating, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like music in the sense that
Mm.
there is certain mathematics to it. There is a certain design to it in crafting that experience. So I mean, I'm still finding my feet as a screenwriter because I've written only 2 seasons of Family Man, and I helped write Game Over, and
Right.
I assisted Rajan DK in a couple of movies, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
that's what. So I'm by no stretch I am an expert writer as yet. I'm still learning a lot. I mean, I learn from the best, which is
Mm.
Rajan DK and so many
Mm.
other wonderful people I've
Mm.
met in my this
Mm.
journey, this showbiz journey, so to
Mm.
speak.
Have you, I mean, as an, like you just said, an ordinary man in extraordinary circumstances, somewhat applies to you, I would think, like an like a corporate professional, like a lot of us were for a long time. You suddenly in the showbiz world, have you like been starstruck ever?
I was, I was starstruck when I met, Manoj Bajpayee
Okay.
we were shooting in Srinagar, and then I came down, and Rajan DK was like, oh, he's a writer, he's one who, and then, and Manoj is one of the sweetest human beings you'll ever see, you'll ever
Mm.
meet. So he took me out for lunch along with another friend, and
Mm.
he knew some famous restaurant in Srinagar,
Okay.
and like and the tourism secretary and IAS officer, he came and he met, and I was not just starstruck, I was also in awe of
Right.
the uh, the
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 extra
charm and
special
the
treatment.
aura.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so he was like, so we finished lunch and we were coming back, and I realized I wasn't following Manoj on Twitter, so I followed him,
Mm.
and as they say in screenplay, beat exactly 10 seconds later, Manoj says, oh, you followed me on Twitter. And then I get a notification saying Manoj Bajpayee started following you on Twitter. I mean, for, I was like, wow, this man is so, I mean, he's so chill. He's so,
Right.
I respect, and I learned also that, to
Mm.
not to let,
Mm.
see, Manoj is the sort of an artist who did not measure his work by how successful it is in box office. He's someone who's done some path-breaking films, right from Satya,
Right.
Gangs of Wasseypur,
Yes.
Aligarh, Soncheria. I mean, I've watched all those movies, and now he did Bhosle.
Mm.
Bhosle. Yeah, I think I got the pronunciation right. He just played such varied roles, and which is what I mean, you get to learn. Most importantly, you get to learn from the best seat, available in the thing. And you also realize, okay, and he's perfect. He's perfect as Srikanth Tiwari, right?
Of course, cannot imagine the show with anybody else now. Absolutely. I want to just quickly touch on a point you briefly made in passing in just over here. Has this language or the so-called north-south, split your shows largely? I mean, there are English elements to the show in terms of language, but it's largely a Hindi show, right?
Right.
Has that ever come across for you as being difficult to translate what you think in another language and put it down in a thing like that?
So the advantage here I have for me is, I mean, there's like many parts to this, answer to your question. One is, I don't write Hindi lines. We write what is the line that character is saying. What is the conversation between these characters?
Okay.
And what is the idea of what it should be is what is written in English. Like we don't write. Like for example, I will not write things like a stitch in time saves 9 or chip of the old block. When you do that, suddenly the Hindi dialogue writer will be like, what does it mean?
What is it?
So you write in such a way that this I learned from again Rajan DK is that you don't write thinking that the character is going to speak in English.
Right.
Then it's a different ball game.
Sure.
You write in such a neutral way that it becomes easy for the Hindi dialogue writer to give you what, like in season 1, the dialogues like Sumit Arora did. He did a great. He's a great writer, and he's also a director now. When he wrote, he kind of understood what is the essence of what
you're trying to convey. Okay.
So you always give the essence, and then he writes. So it was easy for me. So we are lucky that we have good dialogue writers. So it like for example, the only English line which retained, which Sumit didn't have to translate, thanks to him, is "Privacy is a myth, just like democracy." It's a line that JK says, and people just loved it.
Right. Fantastic. Let me ask you now about this other avatar that you have of being a stand-up, and you have a collective of other fellow members of the stand-up world that you've put together and so on. How has this parallel kind of track, so to say, evolved? Because on one side you're writing a gritty thriller like Family Man, and on the other side you're making these hard-hitting jokes that hit home and make people squirm. I know many of your shows you say, don't come to my show if you're going to feel uncomfortable and stuff like that.
No, that's because I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy, because that format did it kind of existed in a different avatar in say in India. Like we had
of India.
In Tamil Nadu, it's the Pattimandram, where when you go to Leone or you suddenly it's the spoken word where they're offering, but in like a debate, but they're basically they're being comics there,
right?
And so that's a big fan of stand-up, and my idols, like my inspiration, my idols are Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle, and so many. There's so many, but to me, Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle are like I'm a huge fan of them. I've watched all their work, and I realized that comedy is sugarcoating the truth. Essentially, it's like comedy is not just to provoke laughter; it's also to provoke thought, provoke insight. So, how do you if I told you that everybody should be free to practice whatever religion they think they're because I'm an atheist, but if you believe in a certain path, certain religious path, I'm not going to judge you for it. So how do you make this funny? Now that's when you come up, say that's the premise, and you find a better, even more specific premise, and then you deliver a joke, and then people will think, oh yeah, like for example, I have this joke where I say, like it's very important to have your first heartbreak very early in life, because the older you are, higher the misery and the pain from that first heartbreak. And I had my first heartbreak when I was in my 4th standard, right? And when I say that, people laugh, right? When I say that, I had a massive crush on my moral science teacher. Oh, moral
science of all subjects, yeah.
Right. And of all subjects, and they laugh. And then I say, but it didn't work out. He got transferred. When I say that, people laugh, and then I say, and then I say, I look at them and say, all of you are sexist because I said teacher and you assumed it has to be a woman. It's probably
Yeah.
not the perfect example, but
but kind of dovetailing another concept into this whole thing and so.
Which is what I like about it. But although people don't like to be preached to. They prefer this subversive way of saying, "Hey, surprise me!" And comedy is about surprise, right? You're expecting something and suddenly, boom, the comedian hits you with a punchline which comes out of nowhere. So when I came back to Bangalore from Calcutta after spending 3 years there, I didn't have a job. I was broke. And my career was not going anywhere because I didn't have any film. Everything was, in various stages of
discussion,
of development and discussion. Books don't pay you unless you become a bestseller,
right?
And clearly, Ranga Half Pants did not become a bestseller, but it is what it is. So
right, of course.
So I was depressed, and we were sitting in this beautiful place. It doesn't exist anymore in Indiranagar called Take 5.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, great place.
Me and Madhu Menon and me and another friend Arun were sitting there, and there was an open mic in progress.
Okay.
So all the comics who are friends now, I was audience then.
Okay.
I was looking at them saying, "Dude, these guys are shit, man. These guys are like absolute crap." And Arun, being the wise person that he said, "Oh, so you think you are funnier than them?" I'm like, any day. Then he said, "Okay, I dare you guys." And Madhu Menon and I were like, we tag teamed and we were arguing with Arun. And Arun said, "If you guys think you're so funny, why don't you go get on stage and do a 5-minute spot, which is what open mic is all about."
Right.
And we took the challenge, and then I went there and I bombed on the trot for 4.5 minutes. And the final 30 seconds, I just said something in desperation. The audience laughed, and that was like, it's like a drug, that's that laughter. When you say something and you elicit laughter from complete strangers.
Yeah.
And that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And that was like cathartic for me. Like my comedian friends say that, Suman is an author. Suman is a screenwriter. Suman is also a stand-up comic. He's not happy with ruining just one art form. He wants to ruin as many as he can. So I don't think
and there are guitars hanging behind you. So
the scene. I mean, basically to show off. No, actually, I'm a coffee house amateur. I used my 3 years of lockdown in Calcutta when I was a stay-at-home dad, and now this lockdown, this never-ending lockdown, I just started improving up on my basic guitar skills. Now I'm at a better place because I believe that if you don't learn, and that's the best way to keep. There's so much of distress and bad news out there, and the best way to is how do you stay sane? How do you stay? How do you live in such a way that you're always looking forward to something? So I'm trying to learn chess, which I absolutely love. I love the game of chess, and I think in about 1 week's time I will probably play the Ilayanila guitar solo and drop it on Instagram. Things like that. Yeah, these are the things that keep me happy, and also it helps you to write, because you're for me, stand-up comedy feeds into script writing feeds into stand-up comedy, and there is writing a book with everything feeds. I am in fact in the middle of my second book.
Fantastic! I was just going to ask you, is there another book in the works? Okay, great.
Yeah. Once I'm done with my current responsibility, somewhere when I find a break, I think I'm going to finish it. And this time, I think I hope it will sell, because I'm quite sure the publisher will put from the writer of Family Man
on the cover. Yeah, great, Suman. As a final word, before we ask you to read, especially for viewers of TRLT, from your book Ranga Half Pants, we've been asking all our guests this: what would be your message to aspiring, people like yourselves, people who want to emulate you, who want to potentially become any one of the many hats that you wear?
The only thing I'll tell them is, don't get into it to become famous, to make money. I mean, nobody gives a shit about writers anyway, but I mean, if you want to be a stand-up comic or a writer or an author, whatever it is, remember that these are art forms that take years to master. It
Right.
takes, and sometimes what happens is, you get lucky and success comes to you sooner than, and especially when you're young, when you're in your, early 20s or late 20s, when you suddenly you hit the success and there's the spotlight on you, it what happens is it becomes so easy to lose track.
Sure. Yeah.
And go astray. So I think don't be in it for the destination. I know it's a cliche, but I'll still say it. Be in it for the journey. If you ask yourself that, do you fantasize about getting on stage and telling jokes and people are laughing? Do you daydream about it? Do you fantasize about it? Or do you daydream of signing autographs on your book? And I have done all of this.
Right.
I've done, and when I started out, I was absolute. I was, like I said, I was absolute. I was a shit writer. I was a shit comic. I was a zero. Now I am at maybe 0.5.
Well along the scale, Suman.
Yeah.
Well along the scale now.
Yeah. I mean, it is progress. I wouldn't lie, but so I think be in it for the journey of it and for the love of it, because more than any time else, more than it is important for artists to come and give voice to your powerful ideas, and which means honesty. It's not about, it's not a vocation. It is sure, it has to pay your bills, that's important as well, but be in it for it, because like I said, the worst addiction in the world is the paycheck. So don't do it for the paycheck.
Great line. The worst addiction in the world is indeed the paycheck. Fantastic. So Suman, now we're going to request you to do a little read from your book, from Ranga Half Pants, for all our viewers of TRLT.
Okay, let me just plug the book first.
Yes, sure. So this is Ranga Half Pants.
Yes,
so that's the book. Please do make sure, if you don't have a copy, please make sure you go out and buy one.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, guys. Help a struggling writer out. Right. So this is one of my favorite scenes, so to speak, in Ranga Half Pants. Gaja and a confused Ranga got off the bus at Jyoti Talkies. Gaja started walking into the cinema and Ranga remained rooted to the ground, staring at him in utter disbelief. Jyoti Talkies was famous for bit movies, normal movies into which the cinema owners injected a scene or two from the, within quotes, blue movies. Mostly it was Malayalam movies, but today there was a Telugu movie poster luring men. Ish, Ramachilaklu Ostunnai. Hush, the parakeets are coming, was the movie title. Stunning, right? Gaja said, pointing to the poster where a middle-aged woman was displaying her ample cleavage. Welcome to the University of Jyoti Talkies, my friend. Here you learn the dark, untold secrets of life and become prepared to take life head-on. Gaja continued and winked. I am not coming in there, Ngwatta, no way, Ranga said. Gaja walked up to Ranga and put an arm on his shoulder. Listen, Ranga, it's not often that life presents an opportunity to step on that pedestal and show the world what you really are, what you're really made of. This is one such opportunity. No, I think I'll go to school. Appa will kill me if he discovers that I bunked school to watch blue films. Just then Ranga noticed Murthy uncle on his bicycle. He panicked. What now? Gaja said. Murthy uncle, Appa's colleague. Excellent, most excellent. Hooray, what do you mean excellent? Let's hide. Of course, Gaja said and dragged Ranga with him into the theatre. There weren't too many people for the morning show, which started at 10. The usher at the door looked at Ranga. You're in a real hurry, huh? Half pants? The usher said. It's the new style, my friend. Now, why don't you help others instead of wasting time commenting on my friend's sartorial panache? Gaja glared. The usher shrugged and walked away. They found seats in the second row from the screen. When I was your age, I paid 75 paise to watch a movie. Now it's a rupee and a quarter anna. Ranga, by 1990, you will probably usher in another passionate young man to keep our glorious tradition alive. The sense of duty is inescapable, but be ready. You might have to pay 5 rupees then, Gaja said. I am not coming back here again ever. That's what they all said. Also, I think you'll have to wear full pants, at least in 1990. Ranga was angry. He got to his feet and was about to storm out, but Gaja pleaded with him and they went back to waiting for the movie. A lungi-clad man walked across the screen and sat in front of them, in the front row, and the lights went off. The lights around the screen lit up as the devotional song Namo Venkatesha started playing. The movie was like any other movie, horrible. To top it all, it was a dubbed movie, so the lip sync was all over the place. Ranga was bored. What is this, Gaja? Award movie or what? Ranga said. The man in the front seat turned and glared at them. Patience is gold. Wait, Gaja said. Hey, can you guys keep quiet? I'm missing out on the dialogues. The first half got over. Gaja bought some popcorn and handed a packet to Ranga. What is this nonsense, Ra? They are cheating us, Ranga fumed. I told you to wait, no. The magic will happen in the second half. It was all boring for Ranga until the heroine touched the hero's photo and instantly slipped into a dream sequence. That's where the local editor's genius came into play. They showed a scene from an entirely different movie, a triple X no less, and Ranga's mouth stayed open throughout the minute and a half scene. He was finally jolted into reality when the original heroine took her hand off the hero's picture, blushed, bit her lip, shook her head, and ran into the bedroom. Even Gaja was rendered speechless, and that didn't happen too often. The man sitting in the front row punctured the stunned silence in the cinema. He said, Nah, Kodukulu, it was a dream. I thought it was for real.
Terrific. That if that doesn't excite you to go and buy the book, I think will. So, thank you, Suman. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing those wonderful thoughts, very candid insights into your journey. And we're all, of course, very excited to see season 2. Yes. Of Family Man, which will drop at some point of time, and subsequent shows, books, and all of it from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on your show, Venki. Really, I had a lot of fun talking. It's not often that a conversation becomes so interesting, but this was nothing but just a seamless conversation, and I had as much fun, if not more. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So that was Suman Kumar talking about his wonderful journey, the various hats he's worn as an author, as a screenwriter, and as a stand-up comedian. If you were inspired by this journey and you would like to listen to more such stories of people who've taken these unconventional career paths and succeeded, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is under the name of Nexus Consulting, in which you can find all the videos of The Road Less Taken. All episodes are there, and future episodes will drop every Friday. Till then, this is Venki Srinivasan saying stay home, stay safe, and see you again soon on another episode of TRLT. Bye-bye.